Hello everyone, I am TJ Hafer and welcome to Loresworn Gaming. We're starting a new series today called Viking Twilight, playing Crusader Kings II using the Iron Century bookmark. It's my first real experience with this bookmark. Before anyone mentions it, I got a really bad sunburn hiking the other day, so that's why I look like I have red shit all over my face. But we can pretend that it's the blood of my enemies, if you want, because that's very thematic for what we're doing. I talked a little bit about this on Twitter and also with some of the 3 moves ahead guys. Oh, by the way, since we are playing Vikings, I'm always wearing this, but I'm wearing it on the outside right now. My Thor's hammer that was given to me by Commandalicious, who's one of our longtime subscribers / followers. So hailsa to you, Commandalicious. Thank you for that. Yeah, I was talking about this on the 3 Moves Ahead Discord. I was talking about this on Twitter a little bit. I'm sort of starting to come around to the idea that maybe 867 and 769 aren't really actually all that good of bookmarks, at least for what Crusader Kings II aims to do. I'm going to do a whole video breakdown at some point here on, like, the Curonia game from the last round of Chronicles, like, what that save file actually looks right now, because it's an absolute mess. It just kind of seems like the way things are balanced, you're never going to get anything approaching anything that looks like a plausible medieval Europe for the most part, if you start from those 2 earlier start dates. And it can be fun. Like, it can. But I'm hoping Iron Century is going to be that good balance of, like, there's still some tribal areas left, there's still some pagan areas left, but also, you know, maybe how the map ends up playing out looks a little bit more like what we would expect medieval Europe to look like. Because, yeah, it gets a little bit too ahistorical and plausible for me. Especially 769, I think. Lagavulin16 in the chat, hello. He says, I love starting in 769, but yeah, the world descends into too much chaos. EU4 gets criticized for kind of putting some tags on rails, but I think a bit of that in some form is necessary. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the classic grand strategy problem, right? Like, to what degree do you want to simulate history, and to what degree do you want to present a sandbox? Those can be competing factors in some cases. Certain Paradox games have gone one way with it, certain Paradox games have gone the other way with it. I don't think there's, like, one perfect answer. But yeah, I'm hoping this bookmark's going to be a little bit more balanced. I'm hoping for this to be a longer-term series. I actually would like to follow this through longer than some of our other stuff we've done recently. This is going to go on YouTube. I've not uploaded anything to YouTube in ages, but this is going up there. So if for some reason you can't watch the whole thing, it'll be on there. So, the Iron Century. We start in 936 AD. On the 7th of August, 936, Otto I was crowned King of the Germans, so the beginning of the Ottonian dynasty, which, other than the Karlings, is probably the most important dynasty in the Holy Roman Empire in the medieval era, at least the early medieval era. He initiated his arduous campaign to crush his rivals and reconquer the lost territory in Italy to reform the Holy Roman Empire. The Magyars settled down in the Carpathian Basin. By the way, anybody from Hungary who might be watching this, I've had some arguments lately over whether it's Magyar or Magyar. I would like to know what the actual correct pronunciation for that is. But they settled down in the Carpathian Basin and began to make their mark on the world as they conquered and pillaged their neighbors, becoming feared across Europe. In the north, the Christians were trying to push into the Scandinavian peninsula to start converting the pagan kings, but the Germanic faith still stood strong among the Vikings. So that's why this series is called Viking Twilight. By 936, I don't want to say the writing was totally on the wall, but it's definitely a point in history where, like, if the Germanic religion was going to be saved, it's kind of got to be now. By the year 1000, Christianity had pretty strongly taken hold in Scandinavia. It was already starting to take hold. there was the Archbishop of Hamburg Bremen, who basically was kind of headquartered on the this area, like the Frisian coast, the eastern Frisian coast, was making concerted efforts to convert the Norsemen. It wasn't too long after that. I mean, Norway already starts with a Christian king during this bookmark, no, this is actually 1066 we're looking at right here. This is not correct, so I might have to restart the game. Let's see. Yeah, so by about 1000, most of the Norse realms would be ruled by a Christian king. I mean, it took a lot longer than that to convert the people to Christianity, and in some ways that was never fully completed. I mean, a lot of our Christmas traditions are still, you know, leftovers of Norse paganism and other forms of paganism. There's actually, if you want to look up Elfdalia, it's a region of Sweden. I think it's actually owned by Norway in this time period. But I think it's kind of along this river right here. But there were some very wild areas of Sweden where, like, pagan idol worship may have gone on up into the 1800s, just because they were so far out in the boonies that nobody really bothered to mess with them. Which was also around the time that like neo-Odinic societies were getting started among some of the Romantics in Northern and Central Europe. So there's some argument that can be made that, while not a continuous tradition, there was some unbroken tradition of Norse paganism in Europe from, you know, way back in Indo-European times and even up to the modern day, because those, you know, Odinic societies were in some ways precursors to, like, you know, Asatru and other forms of Germanic neo-paganism that have arisen since then. Anyway, it's a lot of monologuing. In Baghdad, far to the southeast, the ancient Abbasid Caliphate. Yeah, this is definitely showing us the wrong start date here. So we'll click in, and then it'll hopefully show us the correct stuff. Once ruled an empire stretching from Persia to Hispania, finally fell to infighting, left with only the heartland of their former empire. And on the shores of Africa, a new rival rose up in the form of the Fatimid Caliphate, ready to fill vacant regions left behind by their adversary. Josh W. Taylor in chat says, I'm not sure if it's a mod I'm using, but one cool thing I've noticed in Iron Century is that if the Hungarians grow Christian, the king is termed Grand Prince instead of King. That is really cool. I don't know if that's part of a mod or not. Okay, here we go. This is the Iron Century. So as you can see, there's some Catholicism is taking hold in some of the areas of Denmark that are more closely connected to northern Germany. There's actually Germanic settlement in the Danelaw part of England, which is currently under King Athelstan of Wessex. So England is actually united under an Anglo-Saxon king for the first time in a long time. If we clicked back not far before this, there was actually a rather large area called the Danelaw that was ruled over by Danes, by Norsemen. Actually, my folk settled near Nottingham, which I'm not super sure where that exact. I think it's somewhere around here on CK2's map. Yeah, they were Anglo-Danes who slowly became anglicized over time. Yeah, so we have King Otto down here in Germany. West Francia is still under the Carlings. And then we have Upper Lorraine and Arles, which are kind of what's left over of what was the Kingdom of Lotharingia, which each have their own dynasties at this point. The Fatimids, who would eventually go on to rule over Egypt, I believe, are starting to get to be a thing. Byzantine Empire has seen some better days, but they're not in awful shape. We do have an independent kingdom of Italy, under actually an Occitan king of the Abbasid dynasty. So this area is ruled by Lombards if we go back to the Charlemagne start date. Let's see, anything else interesting? Most of Eastern Europe is still pagan at this start date. Bohemia has converted, but like the Poles are still pagan. The Kievan Rus are still pagan. They're Slavic pagans. This guy, I believe he actually converts to Russian culture immediately when the game starts, rather than Norse, unless you play as him and decide to keep him Norse. There's quite a heated debate between historians on exactly how Norse or how Russian were the Kievan Rus. If they became Slavic at some point, like when did that actually happen? Were they Slavic from the beginning? It's a whole big thing. I'm not going to get into it. The steppes, nothing too crazy going on out here. We do have the Liao, the Northern Liao dynasty, which actually stretched all the way to Manchuria, I believe. And they've got some bagels, so those are some cool dudes. Anyway, we're going to be playing as Erik Bloodaxe of the Yngling dynasty. He is the oldest surviving son of Harald Fairhair, who is the kind of mythical founder or the mythical guy. He united Norway, basically. He's usually seen as the first king of the united Norway. But it's actually his half-brother Håkon, who is a Catholic, because he was fostered in England, who is currently ruling. He actually ousted Erikr, who's said to have been kind of tyrannical, with the help of the Jarls of Lada, who are these guys, Sigurður of Lada, who actually would be responsible for a pagan resurgence in Norway after Håkon's time. But we don't like him right now because he was kind of instrumental in kicking us out of our country. So we start as a vassal to Einar of Norðreyjar, which is one of the Viking kingdoms that formed in sort of the northern Scottish Isles, with the Great Heathen Army and that whole thing. But we have some event troops, and we also have a strong claim on the Kingdom of Norway. Oh, Lambert showed up. He says, can't stay long, but glad to finally be able to catch a stream. Thank you very much. Håkon is a strange name. It's actually supposed to be Håkon, but unable to use special characters, or is it accurate? I think in modern Norwegian it would be Håkon, but I'm not sure in 10th century Old Norse what the actual pronunciation would be. Let's see, I think it's slot 2. I really wish you could name your rule sets so I could remember which ones are which. Yeah, I think in modern Norwegian it would be pronounced Håkon. Alright. Norse Germanic Chief. So, on our borders, we have the Jarldom of Suðreyjar. These are descendants of Ivar the Boneless, who is one of the legendary sons of Ragnar. Erik Bloodaxe is kind of an interesting guy because there are a lot of stories about him in the sagas, but as far as what's able to be historically corroborated of those stories, there's not a ton. It's said at one point he became the king of Northumbria, actually at a couple different points, which is this area of England right here. He was eventually baptized, but we're not going to do that because fuck that. And he never really reclaimed his birthright, though, which I think is what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to reclaim the Norwegian crown from our brother, which we're currently his heir. He doesn't have any children. He's not even married. And his personal combat skill is quite a bit lower than ours. So we're going to try to antagonize him, see if we can get him to duel us. Oh, actually, we can already duel him. That's great. So let's go ahead and just pick up our warfare focus to get +10 personal combat skill. Let's see. Any other affairs of the realm we have to deal with right at the moment? We probably do want to groom an heir. So I'm going to go ahead and take that ambition to start with. I'm going to nominate myself as the successor if I can. Apparently I'm not eligible. So I'm going to be a little shifty here. I'm going to pick someone who kind of sucks. Not a kid. 3 diplomacy, not very good intrigue. I'm gonna vote for someone who kind of sucks, because I want my liege to be weak, obviously. And then for our chiefdom, obviously, we want to nominate our son here. Lambert says, I have a friend named Håkon. I play Stellaris with him every Thursday. Why stick to one puny god when you can have so many strong ones? Exactly. Exactly. SG Aslan1 says, have you watched the number file video about royal descent? Erik Bloodaxe, if the sources are correct, is my 29th grand uncle. That's awesome. Yeah. I don't think, I mean, at least as far as I know, I think I've mentioned before on another stream that my mom actually used to do genealogy research semi-professionally, so I actually know quite a bit about my ancestry. I think I am related to the Inglings in some way, but it's like one of those like so far back, like they say almost everyone in Europe is related to Charlemagne. It's one of those things. I'm not in line to inherit the throne of Norway or anything like that. So you designated regent. I usually go for diplomacy and stewardship. This guy has a decent mix of those two things. Oh, martial skill of 8 for my commanders. I wish that was a little higher. Let's let a day tick by here. I'm gonna send the duel request. Winning grants you the title and vassals along with it. So, if you can imagine, Erikr has been kicked out of his lands by his jarls, and he's now come up with the idea that they wouldn't dare lose faith to put his Christian brother before him if he can't even win a fair fight against him. I don't think we have a treasury, do we? Tongue of an unbeliever. Okay, that's kind of cool. It'd be nice if we could get a weapon or something first. Lagavulin 16 says, not in line to inherit the throne of Norway, not with that attitude. Well, I'm also not a monarchist, so... Oh, we should probably make sure our council is doing what they need to be doing. Organize the army is good for now. I want to beef up our commanders as much as possible. Statecraft is good. Let's see... Let's actually, what is our culture here? We have Norse culture in Katniss, but not in Ross. Also, neither of them are Norse religion. Let's try to settle more Norsemen in Ross, because I think we're going to try to hang on to the Scottish Isles and kind of form like a North Sea empire here. Harald Bluetooth's descendant, Sweyn Forkbeard, would actually become king of England at some point. So yeah, we might see if we can get a claim on England somehow, because that would be historically appropriate. This was not when the Danelaw was crushed. That was not the last time a Norseman ruled over England. There was a little bit of a resurgence there for a little while where the English were under a Danish king. Let's see. Council, Liege Council. I'm not super worried about that. Let's go ahead and pass revoke titles. Why not? No available council laws, no available tech. Should be able to raise a retinue once we get a little bit more cash. If we get a chance to commission a runestone, I want to be informed about that. Actually, we should search for the smith. Because if we could get a good weapon before we do this duel, that would be awesome. Did I already? Okay, I already sent the request, so. Challenge accepted! I'm told the diplomat king furrowed his brows and sent for diplomatic advisors upon hearing my proposal. I think he understood the humiliation he would suffer by declining, my lord, the courtier suggests. Clever man, I mutter. The duel is soon to take place. Okay, let's do some RP here. So, Erik is scripted to start with skilled tactician, lustful, diligent, deceitful, and envious. These are scripted traits. I tried starting a couple different times to see if they were randomized, and they're not. So he is a very deceitful guy. He's also very envious. And he doesn't have coward, but he also doesn't have brave. Like, I don't feel like it would be above his honor to try to rig the duel in some way. I mean, we don't need to. Håkon is, you know, a weakling who was fostered under weak English lords. But I think we'll go ahead and convene with our agents here. Night Stalker Honey Badger, welcome to the stream. My antagonist seems unaware that the little scrape I inflicted is what is causing his limbs to slowly go numb. We did it. Valiant effort, I proclaim, watching his sluggish movements. When he lunges at me, I carefully step aside, letting his subsequent collapse look like a failed attack. The poison must have reached his heart. Actually, Erik should start, if you believe the sagas, he should start with Tribal Kinslayer. Because I mean, let's take a look here. Older brother Björn, dead. Older brother Sigurd, dead. Older brother Olafur, dead. And if you read this, if you believe the sagas, at least none of those were accidents. Or at least some of them were accidents. All right, 100 prestige, Tribal Kinslayer. We get a dual victory. Title of Norir falls to us, along with all vassals under it. Håkon dies. Sabotage probably helps, and we gain duel experience. All right, so we have reinstalled the true king of the Norwegians, and Bishop Allen of the Scots. You know what? There are horrors to suffer in this life as well, my friends. So we should probably move our capital back to Norway. Let's see, what do we control directly? Hordaland. I think that was the traditional capital. No, actually, they were from Viking, weren't they? The Inglings? I don't know. We've got some cousins or some shit. Let's see what this. Okay, so that's gonna be off to a completely different dynasty. Chief of Vestfold, Telemark, Odgeir. Okay, so basically, our cousins and nephews are in control of most of the rest of this land. Well, let's see. Off to a strong start, I would say. Retribution, yeah, that's the direction we're headed. You know what? You know what, actually? Is this a garbage retinue? This is a garbage retinue. Why are you doing that? Can we get a prepared invasion of England? Athelstan, okay, he must have more than 50 holdings, so that's not going to work. What about a prepared invasion of Denmark? What if we unite Denmark, Norway? Wait, you can't get prepared invasions against other pagans, can you? Yeah, I don't think you can get... I mean, we could do a prepared invasion of Scotland. Probably. Yeah, if we can get up to 750 prestige, we could do a prepared invasion of Scotland. We don't want to grow too much more without doing a prepared invasion, because we don't want to miss our window for prepared invasion, basically. When you're playing as a Germanic ruler in CK2, that's kind of important to pay attention to. But yeah, we're back in control of Norway, so let's see what our vassal situation is like. Obviously, Sigurd of Lada really does not like us. He is the guy who originally was instrumental in ousting us, historically. But it looks like if we give him a position on the council, he might come around. We made a strong showing in the Holmgang, after all. Like, this guy is absolutely incompetent, so... Yeah, he would also... he would actually be even more incompetent. The only thing he's a little bit good at is diplomacy. So we'll make him chancellor. That'll help him come around a little bit. Short reign, well, that was your fault, but I can see where you're going with that. And then the chief of Sunmara, who also does not really like us very much. Yeah, you can be the marshal. I'll get rid of all these baron tier, like, jokesters. So that puts us in a somewhat better position. The Chief of Heidemark also wants a seat on the council. He would make a good steward. I think we can fire this nobody lowborn guy who doesn't even have any titles. Alright. So we're bringing the realm under control. It's going to take some time, as it usually does as a pagan ruler, to cement our rule. But that's okay. Håkon has passed away. I guess I'll have to find another plaything to torment now. Challenge their right to rule. Killed a member of my family. Yeah, you know, it happens. These are saga times. There's all kinds of that stuff going on. Who is this guy at war with? He's defending against the Jarl of Nidaros. Okay, so my vassal is already taking care of subduing Nordland. Harriedal, do you want to be my vassal? Yes, he does. The Swedes might be a little bit harder to sell on that. Defending against King Ring. So this is the Bjorn Ironside's son, I believe, or maybe grandson. Let me see. Okay, here's Bjorn Ironside. Okay, so this is his great grandson, basically. Important decisions are available. We could hold a great tribal festival. Let's do that. Great festival is exactly what the people of Norway need to strengthen the bonds with their fellow tribesmen. It will also be a great opportunity for the chieftains to bring offerings to our ancestors, bringing prosperity to our lands. And I am going to move the capital back to Norway proper. And I'm going to set a crown focus. So we're going to rule from Hordaland for now. What minor titles do we have? Probably commander slots. We don't have a lot of great commanders, considering we're a Norse pagan realm, and that's one thing we're supposed to be kind of good at.